Yeah, how many of you are the Infracon? So a lot of this.
I guess very shortly we're gonna have Joey, who's the co-founder of Standing Labs, as well as Ibe, who's the general partner of Raise Capital. He's gonna be doing a little fireside chat with us. So if I can invite you to head in. So we're going to be starting the fireside chat session in 2 minutes. So if I could just get everybody to just head inwards so that we can commence the session. Thank you for waiting, everybody. So on stage we have Joey, who spoke to us previously, from the co-founder of Standing Labs, as well as Edith, who is the general partner of Raise Capital. And yeah, so how are you doing? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So for this fireside chat, so let me first introduce Edith. So Edith is one of my best friends. And then she is the general partner from the Raise Capital. And the Raise Capital is a very famous, top 10 powerful crypto investment for a lot of early stage. For example, she's the seed investor for the Solana, Agora, and then the Lightning Network, and more than 60 startups. It's very good. So I think she will have a lot of founding investments and then for the AI and then for the Web3. So I think today we will have a lot of experience to share with each other. Yeah, let's welcome Edith.
Thank you for having me.
So I think my first question is about, so you do a lot of investment and then to navigate through a lot of different market situations and circles. So I just want to know, over the past years, what kind of notable change and developments have you identified for especially for the US Web3 investments, or what's the changing, and then how that impact your investment strategy or approach?
Joey, I'd love being here, hanging out with you and the Standing Lab team, so thank you for having me. This year, probably one of the worst years in terms of venture and Web3 and everything else in between. Just to put things in perspective, in particular on Web3, in 2021, 30 billion been invested in crypto and Web3. 2022, another 30 billion. This year in 2023, 5 billion. So we're talking about 80% dropped. So that's not a whole lot of things go around, unfortunately. But it's not just Web3. Overall venture also have dropped quite a bit from over, I think, almost $350 billion. This year, it's only 174 billion. And out of the 174 billion, 40 billion went to AI. So exactly what Michael Tom talked about earlier. AI is definitely very exciting, really, really hot. But think about it, right? Even for the 40 billion, 10 billion went to OpenAI. So whatever that's left in the 30 billion is not, it's almost sort of like AI is the new Web3. And if I like telling story and analogy, it's almost so that the OpenAI and Anthropic stability are the layer one of AI in some sense, right? Who's going to be the next Ethereum or Solana, we don't know. But yet there's definitely a lot of exciting things that sort of dropped up. So that's sort of theme number one in terms of investment trend and thesis. Number two, particularly related to Web3 in the US, is definitely a very big cloud, regulatory cloud. Have a lot to do with, from the three arrows to Luna to FTX. The FTX court case is actually going to start in about a month. So typical US, it takes a long time to actually bring everything to court. But because of that, for this whole year, there's a lot of sort of uncertainty around regulatory compliance. And I can tell you a lot of the Web3 startups and fellow partners in the US just feel very gloom and doom, and it doesn't seem like the US government is very friendly to crypto at all. So for me coming here, I have a very opposite feeling. It seems like there's at least hundreds of people here already excited about building in Web3. That is so not the case in the US. And I actually have companies, American companies, and startup and team are thinking about moving to Asia. Could be the Hong Kong, Singapore, or Dubai. So these are some of the hotspots. So it's been a really strange year. I think overall, I'm still bullish on Web3 and the future and the decentralization, but this year has been quite strange.
So that's why I just talking with some friends say, oh, right now it was the bearish market, but still there was a lot of active builder here. So this should be the true love and true builder. Because I think even in this bad situation, only the true builder will really still doing something. Right? So I think even for an investor, you have just crossed a lot of different markets. So what's the different strategy for investment in the bullish market and the bearish market?
I think that it's great to be an investor right now. Of course, many of you are builders and founders. It's definitely not what you want to hear. But having said that, if you think about it, to put things in perspective, 2022 and 2021, and in my industry, most of the funds last about 10 years. And usually the investment period is the first 3 to 5 years, which means that from the Paradigm to Andreessen to Han Ventures, all of these guys have raised almost more than $1 billion in funding. And even though, as I mentioned earlier, this year is only $5 billion overall worldwide, but there's a lot of dry powder. But the investor is actually very slow, have a lot to do with because they know that, the market is so down, they're waiting to see what's going on in terms of valuation. This morning is kind of sad. I was talking to a founder, Web3 gaming founder, unfortunately couldn't launch in 2022. Now doing a Series B. The last valuation was 65. Now they have to cut more than half. So definitely doing a down round. But you know what? When, as you said, worst time is the best time to build, and it's all about survival. And it's really, like we basically tell all our founders is that if you can't cut costs, and you know what, I'm still fairly optimistic. I bought my first Bitcoin in 2013, and I don't know how many times where we have seen this play out again and again. I do think that it will come back. There's some prediction, but please don't call me up on it. A lot of things sometimes it's driven by the US, and the presidential election is going to be November next year, and there are definitely talks around things hopefully will slowly come back after the presidential election. But you know what? I think crypto market and sort of Web2 market, let's go hand in hand. And this month already, ARM, Instacart, Klaviyo, these are 3 IPOs going to go up soon. And if they do well, hopefully things will pick up again.
That's good. And then, as I know, this risk capital is more focused on the infra, right, investment. So, but here you say that I just do a survey. So a lot of people, they are just building their games and apps. It's more like the application level, right? So I think, do you have any suggestion in this kind of market situation? So for all the builders, especially for the application, how to select reliable or best infra, because I think you have a lot of experience to evaluate or just to make decision whether the infra is good or not. Because sometimes we find, oh, we use the infra as the fundamental for our application, but that project has disappeared or they fail, right? So I think, so from your point of view, how to just measure or evaluate the infra?
If you're game developers, I would definitely go talk to Michael Tong, who just gave a presentation, because I learned so much from him from gaming. So definitely go talk to him, because in some sense, if you're building gaming infrastructure, you really wanted to build on people who actually understand gaming. I think the hardest thing is I'm obviously very biased towards Solana. They more or less started with a lot of use cases around DeFi. And gaming is new art to Solana, even though they are trying very hard. But I think like the key thing for everybody is when you're picking and selecting an L1 to build on, it's a combination of just how much support can you really get. I think in the past, a lot of the L1 would give out grants, but money is not enough. Just because, you know what, like let's say you get 500,000 or 1 million token, you know what, it doesn't worth as much as of today, so it's not enough. So at the end of the day, it's really about, and then also the number of wallet active users that actually are using this particular L1, how much like actually enough use of that protocol for you to even sort of steal their user to your game. So at the end of the day, if you're building application, particularly your game developers, the KPI or metrics that you need to focus on is really no different from building a Web 2 game, which is, you know what, if you're on mobile, the only thing that's really matter, what's your install base, what's your MAU, DAU, what's your churn, how much time like each of the gamer actually spend on this. Don't focus too much on, pick a layer 1 that is, solid, has been around, at least like the top 10 on the CoinMarketCap token list. So you know they're not going to die at least. But the key thing really is, if your game is really good, it's really the game or the application that drive the L1, not the other way around. So hopefully, this is not, I know it's not really like great and dandy and happy, but I think at the end of the day, all of us is here to try to survive.
It's the true reality, and this is a valuable suggestion. And then I think today's topic is about the growth and the infra, right? So I think the whole day is from the Growthcon, which is talking about we want to onboarding the next billion users to the Web3 market. And then I think even for the games or the dApps, they're more focused on the user side, right? But for infra, it's more for the builders. So I think, so what's the difference for the user acquisition strategy or to do the growth? Because you have to invest a lot of infra company. So how do they do? Because I think the strategy may be different from the 2C customer is more.
Yeah, so at Raise Capital, we focus on doing pre-seed seed. We write checks anywhere from $500,000 up to $5 million on a lot of infrastructure software, means open source, open core developers tools. And it really depends on question number 1. We usually ask, do you want to open source or not? The way that I would describe to the GitHub is almost sort of like an app store for developers. And these days, to drive, let's say, be very practical about it, if you talk to an investor, some of the investors, even including ours, you may or may not have revenue yet, but yet, if you have amazing sort of lot of like GitHub star or a lot of people who are using your open source code, is a great indication. We have, let's say for example, we invested in this company, is an open source Google Analytics alternative. They have 4.5 million download on GitHub. It's crazy. And we found the developers, he was embedded in Adobe, and then we invested in him and helped him to incubate into the company. And so that's one way to, like if you're open source. But if you're not open source, and being very developer focused, sometimes we sort of joke around, but it's not a joke really, is we also invested in Databricks. So Databricks is a classic example of from Spark on GitHub and open source to commercialization. So at the very beginning, it's all about getting logo. That's sort of a lingo. is can you actually be able to do some basic BD, business development and partnership, and like Sending Lab, right? So now you have over 30 games that is using the Sending like social network that embed in the games. Amazing. You don't necessarily need to be monetized yet, but it's really all about getting an early supporter to start using your stuff so then you can actually improve. So that also is to getting as many logos as possible. I think early, particular for developers, is not, I think most investors, at least up till Series A, are okay for no monetization, but none of these are, you don't magically invent monetization. It's always sort of either subscription or usage or it's nothing new, but it's really about getting as many, in your case, game developers on Sandview as much as possible to get to the point where you turn things on. So.
And so I think for a lot of infra builder and co-founders, I think a lot of them the developers is very geeky or even sometimes it's kind of very nerd. So they're more focused on the technology or building, keep building and building, right? And I think the user growth is very important. So from your point of view as an investor, I think you're not only just investing, but will help them and grow with them together. So how can you just help them and then to especially to set up a new growth team or what kind of character for this kind of growth hacker, so to help them to build a whole team.
I think first off, if you're counting on me to do growth, I probably should invest to begin with. And don't get me wrong, I get it. Like if a lot of the Web3 and crypto projects started with on Discord, like some of the people who are on your Telegram or Discord and Twitter following, is good, I guess. But at the end of the day, if you do application, it's really the true people, the active users who's using your stuff is the most important. Growth hacking, there's no like a bullet. I remember, so how Joey and I met was we both worked on Dolphin browser before. I don't even remember, we launched from Android to iOS. And one of the things that we did was, you know what, we were guessing maybe the Android user will also wouldn't mind winning an iPhone. So what we did was we actually have people to first download the iOS app and then have them tweet to enter a little raffle, tweet to win, and then we randomly pick the tweet, and then whoever that win that we pick, they win a free iPhone. It's a gimmick, but the first week we drove 1 million installs in a week. I was so excited. This many years ago, and I don't think that with like marketing campaign, it's not one trick pony. You really need to be creative to kind of think harder about your target users. What do they want? By nature, Web3 is so much about free token or airdrop. It does help a little bit to drive initial, but I think for all the fellow founders, what you need is not step 1. You need to think about step 2, 3, 4, 5. If you get free airdrop from day 1, there's going to be a spike, but it's not enough. What exactly are you going to do, step 2 or 3, for them to keep coming back again and again? This varies. It will be different, depends on what you work on.
So I think thanks for this really just valuable suggestion, because I really see a lot of founders or new team, they just throw the money to the water because they just, oh, we do marketing, we need to spend money and then to do a lot of airdrop and something. So I think how to do them really growth hacking, we will have a lot of experience. So I think Raise Capital really can help them to.
Thank you for the advertising.
Yeah, to do that. So I think if you to invest in the team, whatever it is, the infra or the applications, so what kind of the common character for the founders or the team, so for you to evaluate or to measure, so what kind of this the team would be most likely to invest?
I can give a couple of examples. I think I really admire Anatoly, who's the founder of Solana. I mean, even till today, like they will have a weekly call and talk about DeFi, and he has like 10,000 different ideas. I think particularly if you work on sort of the layer one, more on the protocol level, you see a lot of the typical founders are very, very, very active on their own community. They don't hire a third person to pretend to be you to answer questions, or it's literally most of the open source founders. They are listening. They are. Sometimes I'm thinking, like, do you even have time to code? You tweet so much, but they really pay attention and listen to their community on, like, fix certain bugs, complain, and deal with a lot of these. Really, is a lifestyle. It's a full-time job. I don't think any marketing or events or campaign gonna be the actual founder really participate and have one-on-one combat and conversation with the individual developer to really grow. That's really the most important.
Yeah, I think this kind of event is more important for us. That's why a lot of people with social there, they want to just find some good partners or even the co-founding team. So I think we also have a Sending Me community group. So I think if you can just join it, download our apps, maybe you can find more partners and maybe more talents want to join your company or your project. So I think all the time is up. So finally, do you have any other suggestion or some advice you want to share with our viewers?
I think last but not least, one of the biggest common mistake is if you're thinking about raising money, and what I see quite a bit, particularly for Asian founders, they like to say, hey, I'm raising like $2 million. This is what I'm going to do. Investors actually don't, it's not that I don't care what you do with the money. I care more about the goals and the milestone that you're trying to do with the money you're going to raise. So if you just raise a little bit of seed, you're thinking about the next round, I'm going to raise $1 million. What I would like to know is, guess what? With this $1 million, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to quadruple your user base? Are you not? I mean, it's a given that you're going to hire an engineer and designer, but if you don't even know how to do that, I mean, I'm really worried. But what I really wanted to know is the raise, whatever you raise for, is for what? And be very, very clear about the milestone within a certain time, and that's what you're raising for.
Thank you.
For that, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joey and Jim. So up next, we have our next panel for today. So for the next panel session, we'll be discussing about unveiling the next gen killer games. So let me just quickly introduce our panelists. So firstly, we have Sachi, who is managing investments with Polygon. We have Francis, the head of economy with Scrapmail. We have Zach, the founder and CEO of Jojo World. We have Monica, the CMO of Meta World. Benjamin, CEO of Life Beyond Studios, as well as Mick, who is the founder and CEO of Block Games and Studios. So yeah, can I please invite the panelists up on stage, please?
Hello. Yes, I want to start this panel by asking everyone to give a brief introduction of what you guys are building. So, yeah, Ben, if you give an overview of what you're building at Life Beyond Studios.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Benjamin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Downwards Entertainment and Life Beyond Studios, two companies that are now property and brands. We joined their ranks in May 2022. We were originally developers from the traditional world. That was one of the frontiers of Assassin's Creed in the past, and we're building today a series of technology to facilitate the development and the operation of any type of metaverse projects. And of course, this technology is powering Life Beyond, which is the first AAA Unreal Engine powered Unreal Engine 5 powered virtual game world that we're building on partially on Polygon and also now on Infracon.
Francis?
So, anyways, Francis, I have a comment Infracon, like what we are is like a AAA first-person shooter. The kind of genre is extraction style, so if you're not familiar with that, just consider like a Fortnite with an RPG element attached to it, so there's a continuity between sections that can carry inventory. In terms of like, can you explain what mission on it? It's like we're doing EGC, which is where players can actually create content within the game itself, so we create maps, we create skins, and then we can earn like, from the creations like that. So there's revenue redistribution based on the success.
Monica, could you give an overview?
Hi everyone, I'm Director of Marketing and Business Development at Motivated Team. We are a Web3 content company based in LA, creating digital experience in gaming and sports. We're going to launch our first Web3 game, Social Arena, next month in App Store and Google Play, and we are currently on Polygon. And we decided we're also developing an NBA official license game. So yeah, that's us.
Mike?
All right, thanks, Ashley. Nick, I'm the founder of Rebel Labs. We're an entertainment studio out of Amsterdam. So we're building not only games, it's they call metaverse of crypto pop culture characters. And we've got an entertainment platform. And yes, our NFTs are on Polygon. We're very happy with that. And yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
Last season.
I am Zan, I'm founder of Jojo World. Jojo World is a Web3 version of Western World, and it's a generative AI application in Web3. And powered by a Character 3D model. That means you put something, put a description for some items, we could generate a 3D model for you like 20 seconds. We want to help global users to explore the 3D world.
Yeah, so to start this panel, obviously the Web3 gaming ecosystem has evolved a lot in the past 2 years. I'd love to hear your guys' perspective on, what the gaming ecosystem looked like about 2 years ago when YGG and Axie Infinity exploded in popularity. Maybe we can start with Mike.
All right, so a year ago, right, so Axie, YGG, they launched like rockets in space. And the big question this year is whether it's going to be just a firework or they're going to land on Mars. And so you definitely can see, you can't anymore just reskin an existing Web 2 games into Web 3, put an NFT on that, and like become a billionaire. So yeah, that's the main iteration what happened a year ago.
Yeah, I think like in a more nuanced take, like I think with what we saw when Axie and YGG pumped like quite massively both in attention and like player base and token price, you saw like an entire market get exposed to more of the financial side of gaming, which is like, quite popular in the Asian market, where pay to win and all of these things are kind of accepted. You got to see that be introduced to the Western market, where they've never really seen that before. Typically, we don't like that. That's something that like we're very, very against. So now you've seen like, even though Axie and everything crashed down, the Asian market is still massively for crypto gaming. But then you've seen the exact opposite kind of stance in the West, where everyone in the West is like, no, I hate that. That's terrible. We're never doing that again. So I think that's kind of how that affected and how that kind of changed the landscape.
So I think you spoke a lot about from an audience standpoint, but also from a developer ecosystem standpoint, things have really changed. We have a lot more tools, a lot more platforms, services, third parties really available to support the development of a project. I'm thinking just top of my mind, of course, marketplaces. The rise of Magic Eden, of course, has I think had a major impact. Fractal, Magic Eden, when you think about gaming, but I'm also thinking about like analytics platform that we didn't have back then, so it was really difficult to look at on-chain data compared to what you have now with services like Helika. You have a CRM tool, so we start to now have kind of all of the toolkit that we used to have in Web 2, which will definitely facilitate the next cycle.
Brian, do you want to go next?
Sure.
And 2 years ago, we have a very good ecosystem for the whole gaming industry, virtual gaming. But now, no one talk about GameFi, and no one believe in tokenomics. But the good thing is that we are looking for some interesting games, and we have some new stories right now, especially related to NFT and some like ERC 6551. I think that's very important protocol for us. And once it comes into reality, and maybe next year, that should be a very good story for the broad market. And also we have generative AI, and we may call it like AIGC. And if we put this kind of new technology in Web3 game, I think that will help the progress for the story.
Yeah, so back at the time, I guess the rise of the YGG and Axie just brings a lot of the hot money into this area. So a lot of investors are looking for the next, YGG or Axie, and that also accelerates and the whole development of this market. As far as I know, a lot of the studios in China and Southeast Asia, they are looking to do gamification of their existing Web2 games. So a lot of the tribes, a lot of those, explorations. So I think overall, it definitely is a good thing to the overall market.
Yeah, so we've come a long way since YGG and Axie Infinity came to the market. How do you guys feel as though the Web3 gaming market has evolved over the years? Like, what does it look like now? What are things that consumers are looking for when they're looking to play a Web3 game?
So I think after that, we obviously agree that it needs a really good gameplay to have more people coming into the space and play the game, and really good quality of the game. So, and I think more and more games are looking for and trying to do more to get the mass adoption. I think we've been talking about that for quite a long time. So, how to make it happen, how to bring in more traditional gamers, how to break the barriers between the traditional gamers and the Web3 gamers. So, I think I think this has been a hot topic for this year.
Yeah, Francis, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, since Infracon is building a really impressive game.
Thank you. Yeah, I think in my take, where we're at now is similar to just before most of the free-to-play games kind of launched. You have this skepticism around hey, you can't make a successful game that's free-to-play. Everyone should pay $60 per game, and obviously now that's not the case. And I think we're in the same kind of moment where we saw a few early successes in the Web3 space, where they made a lot of money, so there's clearly something, and a lot of players came in, so there's clearly something there to what we're doing. But the games that have the budgets and the ones with the teams, they're not quite pushing themselves out there. We're not quite at the point where all the AAA games are starting to release and we've legitimized the space. So I think we're kind of with this awkward moment where most of us are probably about to release in the next few quarters. And that's the point where you're going to see a huge kind of legitimization of the space, where streamers and folks like that are starting to play games that they would typically play themselves. They look exactly like what they usually play. And I think next year we'll be in a completely different spot, where there'll be actually a lot more intrigue, there'll be a lot more people trying to get in. I just think because we're in an industry where typically the feedback is no, screw you guys, you make terrible products. Even if the product's good, people say that about Fortnite, people say that about CSGO. At one point when Fortnite was getting that feedback, I had 100 million players. So even though the feedback was all negative, this is a good game, a lot of people are playing it. So I just think we're in an unfortunate situation where our echo chamber is always negative, so we have this pretty stark view on what's going on. When in fact, when you look at the communities, you look at the people actually involved, it's quite positive.
I totally concur, and I think another way to support what you're saying is the fact that if you remember back at the rise of free-to-play, we're in 2011 when finally we're starting to push it in the Western market. We also started to see a lot of these copycat games and very low-quality games disappearing over time, and then taking companies like Riot Games, Supercell really took over and finally delivered really high-quality experiences to these new type of business model that was absolutely hated by the players at first. I think we're seeing the same thing, or we're about to see the same thing right now, where the community and the players are absolutely not as tolerant today to average quality gameplay like they were a year ago, where the game finding as part of the experience was kind of offsetting the low quality. This is not working.
I think with the help with AI technology, we have more new ways to play some interesting games. Like I believe the most of you guys must have heard of Stanford Town, the most popular AI game right now in Silicon Valley. They are 25 individual AI agent, and they have their own thinking. And although the thing is kind of very simple, it's like vocal stuff, but you never know what these 25 guys we have some kind of chemistry in their small world. So I think that's very good. We can get more ideas in developing our own games. Like for JoJo World, you could create your own avatars, and when you type something, you can generate 3D assets in the small world, and you can generate scripts and scenes. And after the ERC 6551 get into reality next year, and we could have more assets in the game, and you could put your asset anywhere. I think that's quite interesting.
So where we are right now, we're at Web3 games.
Yeah, where we are in
Oh yeah. So it's like a reality check this year. Like to raise funds, super difficult. Flipping birds, like adding NFTs, that's a Web3. Make become a billionaire, no, that's not possible. And lots of founders, including myself, we are between the rock and hard place. It's talking to investors here in Singapore, even our existing investors like NGC, Signal Capital, none knows gaming. And showcasing our game, they're like, oh, well, that's just like a side game of Final Fantasy VIII. I'm like, yeah, to build this game is 20 people. And it's like PvP and it's massive. So people who really don't understand gaming. And then lots of founders that build games, you meet them, they don't have gaming background. I don't have a gaming background myself. I was a very expensive MBA for 2 years. But they're not even passionate about what they're building. It's either a clone of something or something else. And you ask so what your game is about? And it's just an FPS, something like that. So really that needs to change. In DeFi, you talk to folks and they're like, really, oh yeah, this swap and this and that. But the game is about imagining, and it's about the stories, about enchanting players and stuff. It's very cool and very interesting, the largest entertainment industry in the world. So yeah, this really is a situation.
I just want to second that, because as I talk to a lot of the investors, and you oftentimes, without looking at the gameplay, the GTD of the game, they're asking what is return economics, and then what's the vesting period, something like that. It's very, very investor perspective, and then you're looking at your, Twitter profile, your Discord numbers, and then it sounds like this really matters a lot to them. So it really is quite challenging for us as developers, as publishers. Oftentimes we need more time to not just develop the game, but to also do the live ops. We're aiming to develop the game that not just for 3 months or 6 months. We're aiming for just not soft launch, but also global launch. And we want to do live ops of a good game. And then so it is a bit challenging for us. Just on a second,
when Web3 gaming came into the scene, I felt as though a Web3 game had to include a token, but it feels like that has evolved over the past year or two. In my experience, some projects have decided to not launch a token, but yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts of what do you guys think are the defining characteristics of a Web3 game?
Yes, I think the key thing, at least internally in our studio, is what we consider a Web3 game is just a game that has either the concept of ownership, whether it's content or IP, or whether you have an open market economy. And you can fuse those together in any way you see fit, which I think is why you don't necessarily need a token. An open market economy can consist of US dollars, it can consist of any kind of currency within the game. It doesn't necessarily have to be a crypto-based token, it can be a stable coin, it can be so I think that's kind of for us, what we consider it as, is basically just like if you take World of Warcraft, like Eve and open them up into being able to actually have the real world assets flow in and out of them. Like you have a Web3, like RPG elements, these creative elements like in Minecraft, Roblox, they all also constitute the other section of Web3 gaming, which I think is the ownership and IP piece, where you can actually start asking for like fair distribution of the content that you create, and also fair like revenue from what you've actually contributed to the platform. So I think for us, that's what it is.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward, where, right? The presence of the token doesn't really, is not a mandatory thing, but you need to have at least, I think, the assets on chain. Otherwise, otherwise it's hard to sustain this open economy. I mean, in a way, we could even think of, you running your database that is accessible, like, like in a way, EVE Online could be almost considered. The only problem is, of course, that you would have to go through, all of the platforms that are connected to these APIs, so it's not entirely open, but I think as long as your assets in transit, and so obviously you need to look onto other marketplaces, that defines that's a Web3 game.
Mike, would you like to say?
Yeah, thank you. So, what drew me to this Web3 game is like, the concept that finally we can put the player in the driver's seat. And this whole concept of DAO, they can vote, they can decide what happens. Like, we launched the Web 2.5 game on Steam, as we call it, like a concept of NFTs there. But then as you complete the quest, you can vote with our token. What happens in the next chapter? Folks love that. But ultimately, the game just needs to be cool, interesting, something new, something fresh. And it's not wallets, it's not chain, that's just infrastructure, the tech stack. So Web3 game is a game, be on mobile, be on a Java platform that allows for NFTs and blockchain. But this tech stack is cool, it's great, it's amazing. It allows for shared ownership, the ownership of NFTs, interoperability, if anyone likes that, I love that. So these features, it's like now, no one says like, Google is on cloud, your email is on clouds. I guess in 5 years we're like, all the games are Web3. Well, most of them have blockchain.
As for me, I think like one character for Web3 game actually is not fun. Because we did a lot of AMAs and we talked about a lot of gamers in the United States, and they told us compared with Web2 game, Web3 game seems not fun. And it's very difficult for you to spend more than 1 hour on the Web3 game if you can get some tokens. Yeah, so I think one reason for so many builders in the Web3 gaming should be like, we try to make the game more fun. Then we can have more gamers, users from the Web2, traditional Web2 world. And actually I want to tell you a story. I think Web3 gaming is still very magic for me, because I just talked to an investor and he told me his son is very unhappy because his son is very young, he's now like 10 years old, and he plays with Roblox, his Web2 game. And his son lives in China, and Tencent is so powerful in China, Chinese market. And recently his son lost all his assets on Roblox because it's forbidden to play in China. And I believe if his son knows Web3 game, and his son should be very happy in the future. I think his son should be a very Web3 native guy in the world, because he will have all these game assets. He will always own that. I think that's magic.
I think everything I would talk about here, including wallet, token, infrastructure, the tech stack, they're all the definers of the Web3 games, but I just want to also mention that the community is also a very important character of the Web3 game, because Web3, if we're talking about blockchain game, probably it's more about the tech, it's more about infrastructure, but Web3 to me is more like the narratives. So we put the players, we put the community in the center, we invite them to be part of the development. we invite them to be the ambassador of this game, that we value their feedback. We want them to be very important and great part of the whole process. So I think community, a very organic and healthy, engaging community is what we want to see.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really important part in terms of community. I think Web3 is defined by community. So, segueing into the next question, people always discuss about Web3 gaming mass adoption. What do you guys think is important for a Web3 game to have in order to actually reach mass adoption?
I think understanding of the target market is the first thing. Like if you're designing a game for the Asian market, you can more easily put like all of this basic mechanics, this open economy stuff, and actually advertise it as such, because that's a very accepted thing over there. Like, but if you look at it from the other angle in the West, if you do that, we'll actually hate you, your studio will burn up in flames. So I think the key thing for us to get adoption is to know who we're really trying to target. And like, you can't service both masters at the same time, like with the exact same game and the exact same experience. Just because they're two completely different polarized opinions. I think it's just us kind of doing a little more market research and understanding what people are actually okay with. Because like in the States, as soon as you mention the word NFT, they'll probably throw a chair at you. Whereas like in China, like it's completely fine. Like that is something that is very accepted. So I think that is the key vertical that we need to get.
Zach, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. And to me, I think like firstly, I should emphasize on the user experience, and it should be very easier, very friendly the game for like people to play with. And secondly, I think we should like emphasize on community again, and both online and offline, like Discord and Twitter. And I think after COVID, offline community is very important. And when you talk directly to your users, to your gamers, they will tell you like what kind of features they don't like, and they don't think some kind of like things not suitable for this kind of game. So we can change them very fast and to make them happy. And yeah, that's it.
My answer is going to be very simple, because I already watched this movie back in the free-to-play game, so I just think we need good games. It's not much more complicated than this. When I look at the current landscape, for me there are only 3 games that are worth playing, really in the space. There's Shrapnel, definitely, which is really kind of leading the game right now. There's Cross the Age, and there's Parallel. It's like, and until we have high-quality games, there will not be any mass adoption. And this is exactly what happened with the free-to-play market back then. Until we had Clash of Clans and League of Legends, we just didn't have any form of really high-scaling adoption. And we instead had players just throwing tomatoes at everybody. So it's not much more complicated than this. I don't think it's about improving the UX and all this. It's about delivering high-quality experiences.
Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Actually, I think 2 things are very important for Web3 games. First of all, I don't know about you guys, your background, like the reason, like why are you in Web3, right? Like why did you join blockchain? Is this, many folks here, they're like, oh, because it was really refreshing, like DeFi stuff, I'm not talking about Bitcoin maximalism, but the opportunities of decentralizations were fantastic. And I think for Web3 games, like 2 things are very important. Yes, the game needs to be cool, but this game needs to provide value for the user, not just the token. It needs to be offer some kind of a development, either it's personal development or enriching the life of the user or player, and then offering earning opportunities or better both. So you have that, then Web3 games, something new and valuable. It's not just a game with like a text underneath. And then I think my mission will accomplish, being most played like Web3 casual game on mobile. It's like a huge market to help players have personal growth with our storyline and achievement system, and then help them, of course not everyone, but the top players earn. So this combo I think is fantastic combo that Web3 games can nail. And we only need one fantastic game on mobile. It's got to reach millions and millions, and then.
When thinking about this, if we really want to do mass adoption, why does the game has to be cool? How do you define cool? I feel like 80% of the game right now in the Web3 markets are same genre, same thing. So what about, I love to play Animal Crossing. What about that? I love to play Max 3. What about that? Right? So for us as the developers, as publishers, it's our job to explore more possibilities, and then instead of just following the trends, following other projects and then what other people are doing. So that is what I like to see is more people are coming in and then try different genres. And the second thing is we definitely need some major platform. For example, our next Web3 game Scholarship Arena is going to be launched in App Store and Google Play. Even though there are some limitations and restrictions for games to launch, Web3 games to launch on those major platforms, but still we're going to get a lot of traffic, a lot of the traditional gamers, and we can deal with the deal well with the onboarding and everything, and I think that is a very great way to onboard more traditional gamers. And last thing, I just want to say that we can we rely on one specific game to do the mass adoption. I think it's we all share that responsibility, though. So each one of us can try our best, and I believe that day will soon to come.
So this is my last question, since we're running out of time. What would you guys say is important for you when you're thinking about what blockchain to build on? And is there any particular part of the tech stack that you guys wish would improve so that it makes the whole building process easier? Mike, maybe you can start.
Okay, well, we are Polygon, and that's the only layer 2 we are, and we were approached by so many teams, so like, okay, we're very happy. So, but cheap, scalable, fast, and it's like, what's the most important? It's like, is the right wing or left wing of the plane more important? Not the most important. So for us, it's just this, and I think, I believe future is multi-chain. As soon as you're doing fine as gaming studio, you can add other chains later, but focus on one, have a good layer 1, good support from layer 2. This folks really amazing. We got lots of support, so can't recommend more.
We are also on Polygon, but I want to mention that. So I don't have the tech background, but I do think that something that, for example, what Sending Labs is doing. So I know that they are creating a protocol called Social Boost. So that is something that you can simply integrate to your website, and then you can just ask the user to connect the wallet, and you can do a lot of different kind of marketing activities, like you invite 3 of your friends, and then we can give you something as a reward. So so I feel like this is, as a marketing person, and I think it's super helpful. So I do think we do have a lot of good tech. It's just need more application, and sorry how that works. So yeah, so I think Sending Labs is a really good example of that.
Yeah, I think one of the key things, at least for us, and I think Polygon's great at this, is ease of development on your chain. Like the cost of hiring, of making a game itself is not cheap. And then you also have to hire a blockchain team, which is an entire new cost in a studio that no one's really used to. So you end up with this huge burn rate because blockchain developers are some of the most expensive in the world, behind NLP. So you just end up burning money, literally throwing money into a fire, and there you go, we're making it. So I think the ease of development and making it so that you don't necessarily need to have those is the limitation at one. So chains like Polygon, they make it a lot easier for games and any kind of application to build on them for a lower cost is the key growth mechanism. And the easier that gets, as the tools progress, the more things that we see pop up, just because from a budgeting standpoint at the moment, especially in the market, where it's probably very hard to raise. It's like, hey, we want to spend an extra $5 million integrating blockchain into our game, and it's like cash is not cheap.
We are also on Polygon. Everyone is on Polygon, and yeah, I think we choose Polygon because we are facing like individual users. We want nice adoption, so we want more users globally. They play with our games. So I think this like chain should be cheap and the gas fee cheap and very friendly to individual users, not for OGs, not for like a big whale. And also, I want like some chains that have some creative technology, like especially ability with like ChatGPT, with some AIs, and also with some Unities. Because I think in the future, Web3 gaming should be kind of like 3D stuff. Yeah, everyone. Once you live in like the metaverse or something like a digital world, everything should be in 3D stuff. So in terms of technology, should have some like combination with the like 3D technology like that.
To finish, so we have a radically different approach, but that's probably also because we have a very big team and we're part of a large organization. We see the technology and the blockchain really as a commodity, and absolutely not as through their specs as the driver to pick one chain or another. I mean, we're building on Bitcoin, which is probably one of the most difficult things right now. But because we're more chasing liquidity and users, and so this is what matters to us the most. And whatever technology stack is missing, we're building it right now. So, but of course, if I was like a 20 people dev team right now, I would focus on the network that has all of the tools, or that has all of the third parties providing the tool off the shelf, and should really streamline my development and focus on the core value that I could bring, which I guess would be the game.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being part of this panel. It was a pleasure listening to industry leaders about how the Web3 gaming space has evolved. And thank you guys so much for listening to this panel.
Thank you.
Here.